Am I the a-hole for saying no to my boss after she asked me to watch her kids this weekend? So my 22 female sister is getting married this coming weekend and I will be gone Thursday to Sunday. I've had this known that I was going to be gone for 7 months. 7 months. I would even remind every month or so just so I knew she knew. I nanny 2 amazing kids who are 6 and 8. This is the first time I have ever asked to have some time off. My boss has always been like, oh yeah sure. Sounds like a beautiful wedding. However, I got a text 2 hours ago saying she really needed me this weekend and she couldn't find anyone else. I was pissed, but I know how to act calm, since you know it's my job to stay happy and calm. I texted her back a quick apology but said I really didn't want to miss my sister's wedding as she's my only sibling. Well, boss woman went off the deep end and said that if I didn't show up to watch her kids this weekend that I won't have a job come Monday. I replied with this exactly. X, I'm so sorry that you are having a hard time looking for someone to cover. I can reach out to a few nanny friends I have and see if any of them would like to pick it up. This is a once in a lifetime moment for my sister, and if it means I will lose my job then sadly I will have to accept that. I love this job and your kids and I hope we can work something out. I think it would devastate X and X. But you do what you need and I will accept that. She threw a few insults at me and said I'm abandoning her kids. I don't know what to do. I don't want to get a new job because I work so well with these 2 kiddos. My mom told me I was in a hole for so quickly accepting that I might get fired and told me that work just sucks sometimes and you have to suck it up. Mom says I should be an adult and just miss my sister's wedding. I don't know, should I? Am I really that big of an a-hole for saying no? Edit, just to clarify, me and my mom don't have a good relationship. I didn't ask her for her advice. She was in the room with my sister and I as I was venting to my sister. I would have gone no contact at 18 if it wasn't for my dad. Can we please stop talking about it now? I have a lot of trauma from her, but that's for another day, lol. Not the a-hole. Start looking for a new job now, and when they ask when you can start, list it for the day you're done with the wedding festivities. This woman must have a lot of backup options for childcare if she can so casually threaten your job like that and talk to you in that way. She must be used to getting her way to do such a 180 on you like that. You can be the one to teach her this valuable lesson about valuing an employee nice enough to give extensive notice in advance when they won't be able to be on the job. After all, you gave her plenty of notice along with reminders, and the fact that she's in the lurch now is because she didn't respect you and your personal time enough to make plans for this time months ago. While it's true that you do sometimes have to suck it up as an adult, that time is not when you've given your employer more than a half a year's notice that you'll need this specific time off. It's very much being an adult to prioritize your sister's wedding over a job that doesn't value you enough to respect that you had arranged this time off months ago. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to invite my autistic sister to my art show? I, 18 female, got into this prestigious art show that I am really excited about. It opens up on Friday and there's going to be a party, but I didn't tell my family because I didn't want my sister, 24 female, to come. Long story short, my sister's autistic. She's really smart, she went to an Ivy League school, but does not do well with social cues. Usually, this leads her to belittling me and being mean. My parents always tell me to get over it, and that since she's autistic, she can't help it. But she doesn't unleash on them the same way that she unleashes on me, so I don't think they really understand. Every time something good happens to me she just kinds of shits on it / me and she never, ever apologizes. Anyhow, my parents found out about the art show and got mad at me for not telling them. They told me they'll be coming to the opening with my sister, since she's currently living with us. I ended up breaking down and begging them not to bring her. I worked so hard for this, and since she thinks that my paintings are silly in the first place, I know she's going to try bringing me down in front of my friends and teachers. I asked if they could just wait until after the party and go later. The show will be up for a week, but they said they'd be coming to the party. They also said I was being ableist by wanting to exclude my sister. My sister found out and started screaming at me and calling me in a hole for not letting her share in this moment with me. From my point of view, I just want to have a happy night and celebrate this accomplishment, but I don't know. Everyone in my family's pissed at me, so maybe I am the a-hole? Too long didn't read. My sister insults me all the time and I didn't invite her to my art show because of it, but my family think I'm in a hole for not doing that. Not the a-hole. Being autistic isn't a free pass to being an abusive a-hole. My daughter's autistic. She still gets sent to her room for a timeout when she's being inappropriate. Am I the a-hole for hiding in my room for the rest of the vacation after my fiance dumped me in the pool? When I was 5 I almost drowned and I've been terrified of large bodies of water ever since. It's not something I talk about, so not many people know about it. We went on vacation with my fiance's family. They all spent a lot of time swimming, sailing and doing other activities involving water. I avoided participating in any of these activities and would normally just read or spend time with my future mother-in-law, as she also didn't participate. One morning my fiancé ended up dumping me in the pool. I was so shocked I ended up fainting. I felt awful when I woke up and I could barely form a sentence, but the doctor who came to check up on me told my fiance I was just in shock and I needed to rest. I ended up hiding in the room for the rest of the vacation, even after I started to feel better. My fiance tried to get me to eat with everyone else or to do something with him, but I kept saying no even though he kept apologizing and said he felt awful. Eventually, his cousin's wife came to see me and said I should come down and spend time with everyone since I was making my fiancé feel like crap and he was already beating himself up enough without me making it worse by hiding in the room all day. She said I was ruining the vacation for everyone by doing what I was doing and it was my fault for not telling my fiancé I was so scared of water in the first place. Am I the a-hole? If he didn't even know about this trauma, you guys ain't ready to be married in my opinion. For how long have you known each other? Not long? If he had known and done that, I would have pulled out the divorce card. It's such a serious matter. It's seriously messed up to play with someone's trauma. But now, he didn't know. So not his fault for not knowing. Not your fault for suffering an unresolved trauma/phobia and its associated symptoms, loss of consciousness, fatigue, social withdrawal, etc. Not a hole. People mention that he apologized several times so you should be okay, but according to your comments, you don't seem angry at him, just sincerely scared. Social withdrawal is a normal reaction after such an experience. You can accept his apologies and still feel the anxiety symptoms. I don't blame either of you. It's a good opportunity for you guys to discuss this and for you to see if he understands or is open to understanding mental health issues. If this phobia/trauma often impairs your functioning, I'd advise seeing a therapist specialized in trauma/phobia. CBT works very well for this. It can seem daunting, but it's very effective and a good therapist will respect your rhythm and then that'd be resolved for you forever. You should do it, for your own well-being. Am I the a-hole? I had my mother-in-law trespassed after she entered my home and fired my babysitter. I am a widower. I lost my wife, and 34, just minutes after she gave birth to our first baby, Sammy. She had a difficult pregnancy so I took an indefinite leave 3 months before she was due. Sammy's 4 months old now and before I went back to work, I told my mother-in-law, Sandra 56, about my plans and if she can recommend a nanny to take care of my daughter when I work. She offered to do it, nanny, for free. I told her she's free to come by any time during the day if she feels uncomfortable with a nanny looking after Sammy, but she insisted on doing it herself. So I said yes and gave her a copy of the house keys. She comes 30 minutes before I leave for work, and when I come home, she stays for dinner and leaves after putting Sammy to sleep. Everything was fine for the first couple of weeks until I noticed that Sammy's not feeding as much. Her formula's barely touched. I asked Sandra about it and why Sammy's not feeding well. She said she's trying to breastfeed my daughter. At first I thought she was joking, then I realized she wasn't. She said Sammy needs to latch for a few minutes every day to activate her milk production. I almost lost it. I told her she cannot do that, and she needs to stop. She said she will, but I caught her again when I walked in my daughter's room and she was forcing Sammy to latch. I confronted her and told her she's no longer my baby's nanny. I didn't ask for the key back as she is still welcome to come visit any time. I asked for a 1-week leave from work to care for my daughter and find a nanny. I found one, but 2 days after she never returned. I called her and she said my mother fired her the day before. I asked her to describe the woman and I was livid when I realized it was Sandra. She came in my house using her key and fired my nanny. I was about to call her when she showed up and said a convoluted story like how I hired an incompetent nanny, etc. etc. I told her to leave, but she refused and told me she's calling CPS because I'm endangering my child. We argued back and forth before I called the police and she was charged with trespassing. I know my mother-in-law is grieving the loss of her daughter, I am too. But she crossed the line when she disregarded my wishes. She is very upset with me. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law are calling me ruthless and I am now second-guessing myself. Have I taken it too far by calling the police? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Her trying to breastfeed your daughter without your permission is gross and completely wrong. Beyond that, she fired your nanny? I'd ask for your key back and set some serious boundaries. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to raise my brother? When I, now 26, was 11, my dad left me and my mom for another woman. He had a child with her named Nathan. I have never met my half-sibling and I'm an adult now and Nathan is 14. His mom eventually left my dad and is prisoned for drug-related offenses. My dad died and now Nathan has no family. My dad put it in his will that I am now Nathan's guardian. I refused and the caseworker looked at me like I was a total poss. I rent with roommates and I work about 50 hours a week, so I don't even have time to raise my half-brother. The caseworker said that my brother was excited to move to California where I live, but I told her it's not going to happen and you shouldn't have even told him that. My mom agrees with me that I'm in no place to raise kid, but some of my relatives are acting like I am a monster because I'm not helping my brother out. It's not my fault that my dad left no other options for him and he has to go into the system. I don't feel like I am even in any place to help him out at this point in my life. Not the a-hole. All of those relatives acting like you're a monster? They are free to raise your brother themselves. Am I the a-hole for choosing one of my sons? My husband, 68 male, and me, 65 female, have 3 children, 38 male Steve, 37 male Ryan, and 35 male Owen. My husband was a standout athlete and went to college on a scholarship to play football. Steve and Owen were also very athletically gifted and spent a lot of time with their dad playing sports. Ryan was into debate club and drama club. My husband spent most of his time with them and regularly excluded Ryan. When Ryan was 14, he made the comment to me that he probably wouldn't join any clubs in high school since his dad wouldn't be proud of him since it wasn't sports. My husband overheard and was annoyed by that statement, but for 3 months he spent some one-on-one time with him. But once sports season started, that time came to an end. He did end up joining speech and debate club. My husband attended a handful of meets for. When he made state, he was ecstatic. We invited both families and I told my husband he'd better be there with our 2 sons. They showed up but halfway through left to tour the college campus because the tournament was boring. They ended up missing our son present. Ryan was devastated and he told me that when he graduated, he was moving for college and not coming back. He ended up going to college out west and joined their forensics and debate team and won a national championship. I attended, but his dad chose to take Steve and Owen to a hockey game instead. Ryan ended up in law school and is now a junior partner at a firm. He got married a few years ago and just gave us our first grandchild last year. Our son allowed us to meet our grandson, but then told us that he doesn't plan on moving back, ever, or on visiting our hometown anytime soon, as he doesn't want any of his kids around my husband and his brothers because of the favoritism. My husband was livid and told Ryan it was time for him to grow up and stop blaming him for his issues. My husband is now angry because he feels like Ryan is being petty and stubborn and ridiculous. I finally had enough of his whining and told him that I had warned him about his exclusion of Ryan and blatant favoritism for his brothers over him, and that I have no sympathy for him now that Ryan has decided to cut him out. I told him he needs to go to therapy and work this out and his issues there. I've been out west 3 times since without my husband, because he feels Ryan is being ridiculous, and he's still angry at me for supporting Ryan and not defending him when he said he showed favoritism. He used our other sons to try and guilt me into talking to Ryan about being immature and causing a rift, but I said I don't feel like it's my job to defend something I warned him about years ago. They told me I was being overdramatic and now they see where Ryan got it from. I told them they were allowed their opinion, but from then on, I was no longer hosting family holidays and they could fend for themselves. I went out west over Easter and spent with Ryan and his family. My husband is claiming I'm showing favoritism now and that I'm an So, am I the a-hole? You're not the a-hole, but it sounds like the rest of your family, sans one son, might be. I can see why your son feels the way he does, and I think it's awesome that you and he still have such a strong bond. Am I the a-hole for telling a customer that his way of flirting was creepy and he should never tell a woman what he told me? I 24 female work in a smoke shop. Most of my customers are well-mannered and super respectful. Being the only woman who works in the shop, I do get a fair amount of customers flirting with me. We all work alone on our shift for the most part unless hours are split. A couple of weeks ago I had a male customer come in around 8 p.m. As I greeted him, the first words out of his mouth were, "I love you, skin, you are so beautiful and I'd commit a crime with you." Immediately I got uncomfortable and did a nervous chuckle as I said, "That is really creepy, please don't ever tell a woman that ever again." He immediately got quiet, purchased his items and left. A few days later he came back sort of angry and told me it's women like me that make it hard for men and other women to date. And how I was a bitch who couldn't take a compliment and that he would be watching me. So am I the a-hole for standing up for myself? For those of you that may ask, the night in question I was wearing a baggy sweatshirt and sweatpants. Obviously not the a-hole. What the actual frick? I would be tempted to call the cops on the "he would be watching me" part. That's not just creepy but threatening. You absolutely need to tell your boss. Will I be the a-hole for reporting my child's teacher? Altic, because my family knows my Reddit. My spouse, 41 male, and I, 41 female, have a child that we'll call Hannah, 15 female. Last week I picked Hannah up and she said that one of her teachers, we'll call her Ms. K, took her phone for looking at it during class. I told her she needed to keep her phone in her pocket during class, then Hannah tells that Ms. K still hasn't returned it. I thought that was a little weird, but whatever, get it tomorrow. Every day after Hannah tells me she asked for it back and Ms. K refuses. On Thursday I sent her an email asking when we can expect the phone back and that I would like her to have it for when she works this weekend. No reply. A whole week of this passes. Today, Hannah gets in my car and tells me she asked and Ms. K didn't even answer. She just ignored her. I lost my patience and went into the school. I found Ms. K standing outside her classroom and told her it was time she give me the phone back. She tells me that Hannah needs to learn to stop using her phone in class and I tell her that I agree, and that she can take her phone away every day in her class if she feels she needs to, but it's not acceptable for her to just keep the phone for this long. I made a scene, students and teachers alike were staring, but she relented and said she would get the phone out of her office and came back with it about 3 minutes later. I feel like an idiot for not checking the phone when she handed it to me. I didn't give Hannah back her phone from my purse until she was done with her assignments for today and a couple minutes after she comes back to me in a panic. 2 things were wrong. 1. The screen was cracked and it wasn't before. 2. She had to re-log into her Apple ID, which we thought was odd. She then looked at her account settings and saw a second Apple ID, with Ms. K's full name and avatar. We think she may have merged the data or something too because there are contacts we don't recognize on the phone. I lost it, told Hannah she can't use the phone for now because I'm worried if Ms. K has access to anything on her end, and sent an email to her demanding an explanation. There has not been a reply. I'm seriously considering reporting her to an administrator and having her pay for the screen repair, but my husband thinks that will cause her to retaliate on our daughter and that I might have overstepped by confronting her today. He also thinks it's possible she may have made a mistake and accidentally thought she was on her own iPhone or something, and that his IT guy could help with separating the IDs. He thinks we should let it go now that the phone is returned. I agree that he might be right about Ms. K retaliating, and I might be overreacting, but I'm having a hard time accepting the state that she returned Hannah's phone and just letting things go. Will I be the a-hole for reporting her? Not the a-hole. Report this. The teacher took the phone for a week, damaged it and had the audacity to log themselves in IT as if they owned IT. And they even refused to hand it to you initially. Report this as soon as possible. Am I the a-hole for leaving a $0 tip at a restaurant? So my wife, 34 female, forgets her ID and I, 33 male, order a drink at a restaurant we frequent often. Obviously they wouldn't serve my wife a drink because she couldn't present an ID. We could be considered regulars with how often we are there. Regularly spend $150 to $200 a night and tip 20 to 30%. The people working tonight are not the regular staff. My wife has maybe 3 discreet sips of my drink, not in front of the server, and I want to order another drink. The server refuses to give me another drink because he says we are sharing drinks and watching our table like we are little kids. Mind you, the whole time he sets up people in the restaurant to police us and watch our table when he can't. Barely gives any service. Except when we're done with our food. I have no problem with them not serving my wife because yes, the law says no drinks if you don't have ID, but you deny me, a grown 33-year-old man with a wedding ring, on a second drink. Even if the liquor board is there, they check to make sure people who are drinking are ID-ed. They're not going to make a fuss if someone has a sip who is obviously over 21. None of your business what happens at our table. You're not top flight security. Left a $0 tip. Am I the a-hole? You are the a-hole. It's your wife's fault, not the server. Alcohol laws are strict and businesses can lose their license over people like you. Then you leave no tip for someone making $3 an hour because your wife forgot her ID. Am I the a-hole for calling the police on my grandson? I, 65 female, have been letting my grandson, 18 male, live with me for the past year and a half. He is not on any leases and he does not pay any bills. My daughter-in-law kicked him out of their home and my son doesn't want to deal with his issues. My grandson has made some very bad decisions and had turned to alcohol and drugs. I sympathize with him, especially since his own parents do not want to help him or do anything for him. The only people he has are myself, his 2 aunts, and a few cousins. I have convinced him to go to therapy and have entered him into several programs to help him. He has stolen money from my purse, he has sold my possessions, and most recently has been staying out way past 4 a.m. I gave him a curfew and locked all of the doors by midnight to discourage him even going as far as setting up an alarm for the door. He has gotten through that and has started climbing through windows. I finally got fed up and warned him I would call the police the next time he stays out late and climbs in through a window. Well, he did it again and I kept my word. I want him to get clean and to pick himself up, and I felt this was the only option. My daughters feel I'm being too rough and being an a-hole. I can see how calling the police was going too far, but I didn't know what else to do. Even his father has texted me calling me awful names for it. I am beginning to think I have made a mistake. Not the a-hole. My daughters feel I'm being too rough and being an a-hole. Even his father has texted me calling me awful names for it. And yet they are doing nothing to help. If they think they can do better, then let them have it. This is absolutely none of their business. You are doing the best you can to rein this kid in. Don't feel guilty. You have nothing to feel guilty about.